Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Crash Bandicoot. In the last part we continued on the game, taking on our second boss, Ripperoo, in the process, and now we're in what is probably either my second least favorite theme or least favorite theme for levels in the game, the temple stage, the exterior temple stages with the Lost City. Why do I not like these stages too much? They're incredibly long and the enemies are annoying. These are probably the longest stages in the game, bar none with the way the second one plays out. And the enemies are probably some of the most annoying. The bats aren't too bad, though. If I recall in the N.Sane trilogy, if you take out the bats that begin and start the chain, they actually will stop spawning. The biggest annoyance is the lizards, both kinds. The ones that stand on their rear legs and the one that walk on all fours, because you cannot spin into them, at least not consistently. Very often when you spin into them, you'll be knocked backwards, still spinning, and probably walk off a ledge into, well, the death pits below you. Jumping is the way to go about them in most cases. There's one weird change to the red lizards we'll be seeing later on in the N.Sane trilogy I'll get into later on. Also, jump here for an Uka Uka. Aku Aku. Uka Uka's a different character. I do that a lot. Also, earlier on, I actually was in a little inlet towards the back of the stage. You're going to want to jump on the boxes in there because there is an exclamation mark block that's actually very hard to notice. And doing that causes the boxes to spawn beneath the, I think, the second N.Brio token. Also, see that moment ago? Yeah, that's what I meant about getting pushed backwards. I do not like that. Especially when I got the relic for this in the N.Sane trilogy. Jump on this guy. I will give, when you're just playing the game casually, not going for all the gems, I will give these stages this. They have very fun platforming, especially during the vertical sequences. But during the horizontal ones, it's just tedious at times. Now, one thing I haven't quite gone over yet are the changes to the Japanese version, because there are a good amount of them, honestly. Aside from just, like, the obvious, things I've already mentioned before, like voice changes, password system being removed, different boss music. Other things were changed, like the TNT boxes now just have bombs on them to make the fact that they're death more obvious. Upon collecting certain versions of the Aku Aku masks, he'll give you hints about the stages, like how to get certain, what's it called, gems, certain other things, like boss hints and such. Really weird, and the N.Sane trilogy actually brings that back for all three of the games, because it's in all three of the PlayStation games in Japan. That was a screw-up on my end. If I recall, in the Japanese version, you start off Insanity Beach with an Aku Aku, which is weird. And to add to the fact of Tana getting kidnapped, at the end of every bonus stage, she disappears. See what I just did there? Spun and got pushed away by this guy? If you're playing the N.Sane trilogy, either they change that thing so you can actually spin into it when it's falling on top of you, or they changed its jump height so you can actually have a better chance of hitting it. I'm not sure which, but I know I can do it because it's how I did the gold relic. Also, I love this song. Mind you, Crash 1's soundtrack, I know I mentioned it's good before, but at the same time, it's also a bit of a case of Stockholm Syndrome, where the songs just kind of get stuck in your head because you might be on them for a while. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of that's kind of just drilled into my head thanks to not only getting gold relics and N.Sane trilogy, but just due to playing them in general for the original game, and N.Sane trilogy actually. Because one thing I haven't mentioned about the N.Sane trilogy yet is that while yes, you can die to get one and still get the gems, that doesn't apply to stages like the Lost City here. Why? The Lost City is the first stage we are getting a colored gem in. And color gems, as I mentioned before, unlock certain pathways to get other clear gems. And they kept the no-death stipulation for those levels in N.Sane trilogy, and it makes them the worst stages in the goddamn game. I can tell you that without any issue. Though notable, some gems also got their location changed, or at least colored gems, in the Japanese version. Like, I think we're getting the green gem here. Whereas in the Japanese version, the red gem was here, which is an odd change to say the least. I think other stage locations were overall also changed. Like, there's one stage in particular I know had the location switched that is really dickishly placed. Also, fun little fact, those those boxes immediately break upon hitting the exclamation point block. That's the only time in the series it does that. I don't know why. But with that marathon of a stage done, we have our first color gem, as I've mentioned, the green gem. And the way I'm handling gem pads for this game is the moment I can go back and do something, I'm going to. You might remember back when we were in Jungle Rollers, we saw a green gem we couldn't use. So we're going to head back and do that now. However, I am going to be doing something whenever it comes to revisits up to a stage. I will be fast-forwarding them playing the N.Sane trilogy's version of the song within it until we get to the new stuff. And at which point, I will deal the new stuff, and if there's more level after that, fast-forward back through it. Because really, you're just seeing the same stage again, it doesn't need to be at normal speed at this point. Either way, going over some more regional differences, I know for a fact in the PAL versions of the game, the TNTs count down faster, and I think Ripperoo was slowed down, which is odd. And this is the entire thing you need for the green gem port. 3 boxes. Thanks, game. That was totally worth it. Either way, the revisit to Jungle Rollers, it's nothing too difficult. I think Crash 1 does the revisit thing the most out of the trilogy off the top of my head. 3 might in some ways if you count the bonus stages, but 1 I still think does it the worst overall just due to 1 stage designs being a bit at times. Either way, with that, we now have Jungle Rollers Clear Gem. However, if you're playing the Japanese version, as I mentioned, you'd be getting the red gem at the Lost City, so you'd be coming back here later. However, I actually like the decision to put the red gem there better because it means you don't have to replay a certain stage coming up. Also, here's a really annoying thing. You press right to move through the first and third island stages, but you need to hold left to move through the second islands. N.Sane Trilogy changed that so that you could just hold right to go through all of them. Either way, welcome to Temple Ruins, which, if I recall, actually sports the highest box count in the game? At somewhere, I want to say, over 120. I forget the exact amount, but there's a lot here. This stage, though, always makes me a bit nervous due to the camera angle. Because Crash, at least the original trilogy's camera has never been always the best, especially when it comes to backtracking. But Crash 1 especially has some perspective and depth perception issues. Because not only is Crash's drop shadow not the most clear thing in some lightings like this, but some of the cameras are a bit too low for you to accurately judge yourself. N.Sane Trilogy fixed that to an extent. It might just be the higher definition graphics that allows me to tell where my drop shadow is better or judge my surroundings more, but I don't know. It's one of those two. I want to say it's the camera, though. Also, those spears there were given a lot more of a startup animation in the N.Sane Trilogy. Like, instead of just going straight out like that, they'd do the little whoop, woo, where they just kind of come out for a bit first to say, hey, we're about to stab you. Pokey, pokey. The ruin-type stages, though, like this, have always been some of my favorite to play just because there's actually some interesting little speedrunning tricks you can use. Like, unlike the fire in the other stages, I think the hitbox for the fire in those little pits, like the one I just passed, ends the moment the sound effect ends. So if you're quick, you can actually just walk through a clear fire graphic. I've always had trouble with these little crushers for some reason, though, especially when there's more than one in a row. And that's a weird thing. At least in the original Crash 1, N.Sane Trilogy fixed this. You can still get damaged, technically, while you have the Aku Aku invincibility, but you don't get hurt by it. Also, the way you're supposed to know that that invisible bridge was there was by the Wampa fruit over the pits. It's not the last time the game's going to do that, so pay attention to it. Now, one thing that is actually very interesting about Crash, I mentioned I think in part 1, is that there is a prototype of the game that was from not too long before release, I think like a few months, that there are active ROMs and ISOs of out there you can find. And there's a lot of differences in it, partially because it's just an incompleted game, obviously. But some of them are pretty interesting, like completely missing music and gems. Something I think I accidentally mentioned earlier by calling a crate the wrong thing, POW blocks, which explode but don't hurt you weirdly enough. A ton of bonus rounds are different. I think they bear more resemblance to the N.Brio stages. The password system is different in that instead of 6, like, PlayStation key 4 buttons, it's boss heads. You can unlock all levels in the main menu by doing a small cheat code, as well as activating invincibility and some debug stuff. And there's also some graphical differences, like a different title screen, different font for the HUD that would actually later be used in Crash 3. As well as just some very minor stuff, like boss health bar differences, and probably the most interesting to me, a 2D level select instead of the 3D models we have here, which are honestly pretty good looking. You got kind of a weird medieval kind of level select. Either way, welcome to my least favorite level trope in the game, level theme in the game, the bridges. Why? Most of the deaths in this stage are caused by falling. And there's a lot of tight platforming here. Speedrunning, it's actually probably some of the most fun you can do when you're not going for the relic, because there's some pretty tight jumps you can pull here that are really satisfying to pull off, but the collision and the hitboxes are the most clear thing. First off, don't bother trying to get the box gem here. You can't on the first playthrough in the American version because you need the red gem. However, if you're playing the Japanese version, congrats. You should already have it by this point, so you only need to play this stage once. However, a little cheat you can use that's a lot easier to do here in the PlayStation version as opposed to the N.Sane trilogy is that you can walk on the ropes to either side of you. They have solid hitboxes. It's a lot harder to do in the N.Sane trilogy because Crash's hitbox isn't a rectangle, it's more of an egg shape. And because of that, you can skip a lot of the platforming enemies in this stage. The most you have to do is either jump over the little totems that I'm about to pass, or just walk on the main platforms for a second. I hate this song too because, God, it just gets the wrong kind of ingrained in your head, especially doing the second level of this theme's Gold Relic in N.Sane. I guess you could say it drove me insane. Ha ha ha. High level puns. Also, it's not always by the fact that we're only 3 parts in and I'm almost maxed out my life count. Lives are no real issue in Crash 1. You'll die a lot, more than likely, especially on your first playthrough. But the game gives you more than enough lives to compensate. Which, you know, is a weird gameplay balance. Make your games hard, but give you a lot of extra lives, which makes you wonder what's the point of it to begin with. In a game like that, I'd honestly rather games, at least nowadays, if they try to do this, except for the remaster, because honestly, it just feels good to have lives back in N.Sane Trilogy. When most games try to do this kind of balance nowadays, I would prefer them to do the Rayman Legends, Rayman Origins method of hard levels, infinite lives. So you'll do it eventually. If you're going for more of a Mario thing, I don't mind lives too much, but eh. Either way, it's time for the second of the Boulder Chase levels, which this one, I think you cannot complete, or is this the one you can? I think this is the one you can complete. I do remember that this level's name is a pun off Balderdash instead of Boulder Dash. Ha, I get what they did there. Ha, ha, ha. Also, if I recall, Road to Nowhere, by the way, the previous stage, is a reference to a song by the Talking Heads. I think. It sounds like it should be. This was a level I had a lot of issues with whenever I got here as a kid. Because Crash 1 is a game that I got walled at several points in my life. As a child, it was Rolling Stones. As, say, 8-year-olds, it was this level for some reason. As a 10-year-old, it was a stage on the 3rd island. Nowadays, it's whether or not I'm having good luck on some of the longer stages of the game. Speaking of stages, as with a lot of 3D platformers, Crash 1 had a lot of unused levels. We know of at least 5 of them, I think. This one lava cave level that's actually entirely in the game and completely textured, but just not used. Some weird untextured level, which is also weird. A waterfall level that is mostly finished and actually ends in a place very similar to the place where you fight Ripper Roo. So it was implied that maybe that where Up the Creek was, there was supposed to be another stage there. A cavern level that I think is entirely accessible through a game shard code, but you need to do a different way of loading it because of some different coding. And a cliff level that looks cool but just doesn't do too much. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we'll be heading into some of my least favorite levels in the game. See you guys then.